Welcome to another episode of Wow, I stuttered really bad. That was not a great start there. Sorry about that. Welcome to another episode of the Dakotans Election Central, where we are comprehensively covering the 2024 North Dakota election cycle. You can go to mydakotan.com, click Election Central, where you'll find a bunch of interviews just like the one you're watching. We're finally on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and all that, so you can just listen to us on the go. But today, we are so excited to have the endorsed candidate for Senate in District 14, Karisa Grothe. Thank you for joining us today, Karisa.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So before we dive into the hard-hitting questions, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I grew up in southern Minnesota. My dad still currently lives on our family farm. I have cousins farming our original homestead that was started in 1864, settled by my great-grandfather. So I have a bit of a farming background. I went to high school in the southern suburbs of Minneapolis, graduated from Burnsville High School. A few years later, I moved south a little ways, and we lived in Northfield for about 17 years, where we started our family.
Okay.
After my kids started school, I was kind of unaware of a lot of things going on in the schools. So I think my political journey really started with questioning school boards and curriculums and things that were going on in Minnesota schools back in 2017 and 2018. We were in a fairly progressive type community, and my values certainly weren't respected. And I learned that just through confronting the school board and those kind of things. When COVID hit, ultimately, it was the deciding factor of my family actually being unable to continue to run a business and raise our family in that sort of situation. So that brought us out to one of our favorite places, North Dakota, and we had been visiting here for many years, fishing tournaments and hunting trips. Have a lot of friends out here, and really the summer of COVID it was not the summer of love in Minnesota, let's put it that way.
Right.
So we did ultimately find a home, and we moved near Baldwin. And I immediately was involved in politics because I was involved in politics in Minnesota too. And there, it just felt like there was no hope. We didn't have any traction. There was really no leverage at the time. And I joined District 8 because I was in District 8 prior to the redistricting.
Right.
And we had made a lot of great progress in District 8. We were very proud of that. And then in the redistricting, I had to start all over in District 14. So I have to say I was met with the most incredible group of people, and it probably created one of the biggest opportunities of my lifetime. So that was my journey to District 14.
Right. So I believe it during 2020 is when you guys made that big decision to move. How would you define that experience in North Dakota versus how your life to that point in Minnesota was?
Well, if we're talking about the year of COVID, I mean, I couldn't even go into a grocery store, or people were being harassed for various viewpoints and those kind of things. It felt like a very hostile environment. When we landed here, it was very with open arms and welcome, and we were enjoying our freedoms again. And it wasn't until after we were actually here that it hit me how much tyranny there was going on in Minnesota. And to this day, we are so grateful to be here. This is just an incredible place. And ultimately, we wanted to move here at some point. I just thought it would be after my kids were out of high school.
Yeah. Right.
So But landing here, I realized even though we have a really conservative supermajority, politics was not what I was expecting it to be. And truthfully,
Yes.
I mean, I wanted to help and be part of it, and I was all grassroots. And until I learned, oh my goodness, what was going on here was extremely surprising.
Right.
I'm not a person that would have ever run for any sort of, not even school board.
Okay.
So to
Yeah.
see myself in a running for a state Senate seat is kind of really surreal to me. The people around me say, "Oh yeah, you were headed there. We saw it years ago." But to me, this really snuck up on me.
Right. And so since moving to North Dakota, you've been involved a little bit in just local politics, serving as an election judge, being elected to District 14 Republican Executive Committee. What inspired you to take some of those steps after you moved over, and what goals did you hope to achieve through some of that political engagement?
Well, the 2020 election was disappointing at best. I was really concerned with masking in the state right at that time. We made it through the election, and then the governor, and we all of a sudden had a mask. I was really frustrated about that, in the move. And that really put the fight in me because ultimately I fought our school board and got the masks off in one meeting, immediate masks off, because
Oh,
I was very much against that. So that was probably the biggest thing. But I was meeting some folks in the community that were like-minded and directed me to the District 8
yeah.
convention and some of that.
Very good. So now in your Senate run, now let's talk present day, what's going on right now. In your Senate run, what are the key issues that you are running on for the Senate seat in District 14?
Well, I think the reason for running isn't even an issue thing, but I will cover a couple of issues.
Yeah.
I just don't feel that the people have a voice anymore. And I think that our government has turned into a place of longtime people holding positions of power and making decisions for us for 6 terms. I think it's time to have somebody who's engaging and who's going to go out and knock on every single door and talk to the people and represent the people of this district and the state, because it is a state level position. So we do have to think about the entire state. But I don't think people are being heard. I think there's a lot of politicians out there that have connections that we don't know about. And I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything, but
Yeah.
I believe in term limits, and that might have been a question down the road, but I'm perfectly willing to go in and serve my time, and when it's done, pass the torch and help the next person. And I think our government should be set up like that. I'm not sure why we're fighting for a seat in the same party and we're all representing the same people. So, I mean, in District 14, we have a bit of a precarious situation going on with the convention, and maybe we'll cover that in a bit.
Right.
But I am passionate about education, and I don't have an education background, but I'm passionate about having oversight over things like curriculum. And we have a lot of bad behaviors in schools, and I hear a lot of teachers saying a lot of things about there being, there's nothing they can do to kids that are disruptive in classes. And I think a lot of that has to do with ideologies and bad curriculum. And so I think I'm passionate about that. And I have been contacted by a really excellent organization that I will be promoting in the future that has an alternative to school board for school boards as a resource. And I think it would be a really excellent thing to bring to North Dakota. So I look forward to that, talking about that in the future. And just being, someone to speak for teachers and administrators that are struggling with some of these issues. So that's one of my goals. I don't, without another group of people there and others that want to work together on things like that,
Right.
I think we could have some success. I'm passionate also about the CO2 issues. I'd like to make sure that our residents are protected from a safety standpoint, from a financial standpoint. There's a lot of issues with that. I think we will be addressing in the future.
Absolutely. So we might go back to the other two issues, but term limits for a minute. This is an interesting thing. We've interviewed incumbents, and the interesting thing about interviewing incumbents this year is they just completed a 4-year term, but halfway through that 4-year term limits was implemented. So under term limits, they're only serving 6 years versus the 8-year maximum, and then they will be limited. Do you think, while the consensus is that term limits was good and needed, and we saw how it passed in basically a landslide, do you think that 8 years is too short, though, for term limits?
Well, from what I understand, a lot of people are going to be switching back and forth. So technically, it's, you could do 8 in the Senate, you could do 8 in the House, you could flip that around. So there's some ways around that to still serve. But I guess I feel like the people spoke, and 8 years might be enough for me. I mean, if I'm having success and I'm being encouraged to run and there's nobody else to do it at the end of the 8 years, I would maybe switch, but I can't say what I would do at that time. And I'm not going to fault other people that do that, because that's what the rules say they can do. We voted for that. So we technically voted for them being able to go in for 16 years. And I think that is plenty of time.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
Okay. Yeah. And I agree that 16 years is enough time. And where that question comes from is will be a lot of turnover as far as experience. Think of glue. There won't be as much glue keeping some of the things rolling, because there'll always be new people that are training, and your experience, as soon as they get that experience, they get one term of experience and then they're out. And you can come on that if you want, but I have a follow-up question to that. And that is, do you think they've always been around, but they're starting to gain popularity in how things are happening with these constitutional amendments or initiated measures that are coming up versus things being taken care of through the legislative process? And of course, you probably weren't getting term limits done through a legislative process. That probably wasn't going to happen. But are you a fan of this, like property tax? It's going to be a constitutional amendment. If it passes, it is in the Constitution, and essentially it cannot be revised without another constitutional amendment. Do you think that's a good way to process some of these things, like property tax and perhaps even like term limits? Or do you think a legislative process is better?
I think it's going to depend on the issue. I mean, that is a pretty broad question, really. It is going to depend on the issue. And I think for certain things, it really does work. And with the property tax thing, I'm not sure that we would ever get all of the legislators to agree on cutting the kind of cost that we need to cut. And so if it has to go to the people, then so be it. I think that it's not a bad way to go about it. I don't see success doing it through the legislative process for something like the
property
like
tax.
that.
Yeah,
the property tax.
Okay, very good. Your career spanned a lot of diverse fields. You in sign language interpretation all the way to financial planning. You don't take one college course and cover all that. How do you feel that perhaps some of these things have shaped your perspective on economic issues, on community development, and even supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs?
Well, I feel like I have always been in a career that has been helping people. I've always had this desire to. I had a deaf uncle as a child, grew up knowing sign language. So naturally, high school graduate, girl wants to go help the world. So that's how that started. It was really probably not the best path for me. However, it did lead me to business. So I eventually went from being an interpreter to working for a small company for a deaf man. And then I was recruited into selling hearing aids and then financial planning. So ultimately, I was probably meant to be in corporate business for many years just because of everything that I learned and where it took me. I guess as a young woman getting into financial planning, I learned all about the Good Old Boys Club. There was a lot of benefits in there that, as a lady I didn't have, and as a young person I didn't have. So there's been a lot of battles in all of the different industries I've been in. And I married a guy, my husband Ross has always been in construction. So I've learned construction over the years through his dad. And then after we lost his dad, we started our own company and really learned the ins and outs of how to run a small business. And so it all just came together. We also have a fishing business that we run, so I help with that. I say that I was really enjoying being a fishing roadie prior to my political career. So
Nice. Yeah. I think it's good though, because small business is a core factor in North Dakota. It's
Mhm.
amazing to me that it's incredible the amount of small businesses that we see. So it's good to have that perspective in our legislature, so that people will fight for that, because they're also fighting for what has gotten them to this point. Are you ready to have some fun?
Sure, this
Let's do
has been a
some
little.
Yeah, let's do some rapid fire questions.
Oh
Let's
no.
break this up. All right. So
Okay,
are you an early bird or night owl?
night owl,
Night owl. Favorite hobby? It cannot be politics.
pickleball.
All right. Favorite book or author?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. I've read so many lately. Um, Carol Swain, she's pretty amazing.
Okay. When working out, do you prefer to do it in the morning or the evening? Or
Anytime I can play pickleball, I'll play.
there you go. I like it. Android or iPhone? This is a big question right here.
Oh, iPhone, but I don't know any different.
Yeah, there you go. What's your favorite North Dakota season?
Oh, summer.
If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Hmm. Alaska.
There you go. That has a lot of North Dakota similarities there. What's your hidden
Yeah.
talent?
Oh, my hidden talent. Well, I know
Yeah,
how to sew. I'm a pretty good
hey,
sewer.
there you go.
Mm.
Your most used emoji. Mine's thumbs up.
Oh, my most used emoji. Boy, I use sunshine a lot.
Okay, there you go. And lastly, what's your favorite thing about living in North Dakota?
Oh gosh, there's so many great things. Well, eating a lot of walleyes has been one really good one lately, but the people here, the
Yeah,
people that I have met are just bar none, some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. So, truthfully, the way I've been welcomed into this state, it's got to be the people.
absolutely. Very good. Well, you passed the rapid fire question round, and it was a good time. Um, I think from just reading your biography and learning about you, it would be easy to say that you're someone that is willing to take a stand. You could see that by, as you mentioned, your efforts to remove mask mandates through that school board, and you succeeded. But obviously, in the legislature, there's going to be controversial issues similar to that you're going to have to fight. How do you plan to represent the interests of your district and being able to work across party lines to sometimes get those things accomplished that might be a little bit controversial?
Well, I feel like I do a really good job of seeing both sides of situations. So I
Okay.
feel like it isn't going to always just be what I believe, but it's what the people believe, and what is constitutional and what is not constitutional are going to be some of the biggest questions and biggest things I'm going to have to fight for. So um yeah,
Yeah,
just
absolutely. And kind of working into some of those issues, do you feel that North Dakota should be concerned about some of the nationwide social issues that we have seen popping up? Um, should North Dakota be concerned? Should they be proactive in getting legislation in place to protect people? We saw some bills like that in the last session.
We do. And I mean, this goes for me, this goes back to 2017 and 2018, when I saw what was happening in Minnesota schools, because North Dakota schools are a little behind on that aspect. So
Mhm.
it has taken much longer to intertwine itself into the schools here, from my experience,
Right.
because what the level of what we're experiencing here now is where we were several years ago in Minnesota.
Wow. I'll bring up a specific issue, and I don't want you to comment on the issue specifically, um, but just if there's a similar legislation for other freedoms. Last legislative cycle, there was a bill dubbed the pronoun bill that was actually vetoed. The first section stated that government entity could not require an employee to use individual's preferred pronoun when addressing or mentioning the individual in work-related communications, or designate the employee's preferred pronoun in work-related communications. Governor Burgum said he was fine with Section 1. He felt like that was constitutional. It was the second section that he had a problem, where it said the bill stated that board of a school district, a public school, or a teacher in a public school may not uh, adopt a policy or practice regarding express gender, provide or authorize classroom instruction recognizing express gender, or provide or require professional development recognizing express gender. That was a part that he felt should be taken care of at the local setting. And that, I don't necessarily want you to comment on that bill specifically, but I want to use that as an example. Do you think North Dakota needs similar legislation to protect freedoms that some might even say we should inherently have?
Yeah, I think in a way he maybe wasn't leaving that up to the local levels, and maybe some of our school boards should have a little bit more control. Um, I know one of our District 14 legislators was one that voted, I guess, off on that bill. Yeah, I think just keeping these things local. I'm not really sure why he signed that. I didn't understand that at the time either.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I think more my question is comes from how concerned do we need to be worried about our personal freedoms going away? Another example that I could point to is um, this week, or recently, I should say, the governor of Tennessee signed a bill stating that if you are a government official, you not have to be forced to perform marriages if they violated your religious beliefs. It was a personal liberty bill that says if you don't agree with the marriage, you don't have to do it for religious reasons. You don't have to perform it as a government official. And are there protections that our government officials need, and maybe even pastors need, reaffirming that those things that they should already have? It shouldn't be something that needs reaffirmed, but in the day and age, perhaps it does. I don't know.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think that, but we also have to be very careful and make sure that we're not messing with people's constitutional rights
Right.
and our freedoms. So I completely agree with that part. Yes.
Absolutely. So, uh, jumping out of social issues and back into specifically into District 14, what makes you qualify to serve as a North Dakota senator for the constituents in District 14?
What makes me qualified?
It's a
Well,
it's a
I'd like
brutal
to be
question.
a citizen legislator. I'm not sure that there's, high qualifications. We have
Right.
we have some reps that are right
But
out
why
of
should they vote for
college.
you?
So,
Yeah.
um, but for me, it's more just at this point standing up for our freedoms, and I do want to be a barrier in some of these bills and be someone that stands up for some of these social issues that our teachers, again, back to our schools and our school boards, are having to deal with. So I just want to be a backbone and somebody who's fighting for what the entire district and what is best for the state.
Absolutely. And what do you see as maybe the number one biggest challenge that either faces your district or North Dakota, that you'd be concerned about?
Well, I'm concerned about issues that, within our government, people that have been in for many, many years and the connections that they have. And maybe us new people are kind of on the outskirts and aren't going to be able to get in and do the work if we don't have enough of us to support each other and support the things that we're fighting for. So I guess one of my concerns getting in there is being a new person, being somebody who's new to politics, and not being able to get any traction because there's not enough people that agree with me. So I think part of flipping some of these seats is getting like-minded people so that we can work together in there and fight against those things.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out today to do this interview. It's been fun. It's been interesting. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
If someone
And I
wants
ask for your vote on June 11th.
Yeah, I was going to say, if someone wants to support you, what would be the best way to go about doing that?
Well, we have Facebook pages. So Larry Dandrum, Jason Steidel, and Karisa Grothe. Mine is Karisa Grothe for State Senate. And we also have a District 14 campaign team Facebook page. We are working on a website. It'll be up soon, which would have a direct link for donations. At this time, I can take a donation to P.O. Box 123, Baldwin, North Dakota 58521. If something was sent back from that box, I apologize, because I know something got sent back by mistake, but it is official address. To Karisa Grothe for State Senate. And we will be outdoor knocking. District 14 is going to meet us one way or another. We're going to be doing a lot of little kind of town halls or meet and greets. We're going to just start attending whatever events are going on all over District 14. So I hope everyone in District 14 gets to shake my hand sometime in the next few months.
That's awesome. 123, P.O. Box 123. That's a winner. Good job.
P.O. Box, yeah, P.O. Box 123, Baldwin, North Dakota 58521.
Yeah, that's an easy one to remember. Again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too. This has been another episode of the Dakotans Election Central, where we are comprehensively covering the 2024 North Dakota election cycle. Be sure to go to mydakotan.com, click Election Central. There you will find a database of politicians, candidates, incumbents, all of them. You'll be able to see videos just like the one you watched. You'll be able to read news, learn all about them. Be sure to stop by our Facebook page, like it, become part of the Dakotan community there. Stop by YouTube, subscribe. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you want to find us. We're there for you. Thank you for watching this video, and have a great day.